Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Lisa Petrangeli, and I think all of you are coming from having listened to my presentation sponsored by APMP about how to choose proposal content management technology. And there was an overwhelming request to show some of the capabilities that I talked about in that presentation about how to select technology, what types of capabilities tend to be part of solutions that we see that are being offered, and put those capabilities into some context. So I've offered this as a secondary presentation in the context of my company's product, SmartDocs, which is for proposal content management. And being able to put in the context of an actual customer use case that I wrote about a little while ago when it happened, because it was just such a perfectly indicative use case that most people are facing very similar challenges and needs. So I thought that would be a useful way to present some of the capabilities in actual context. So today we're going to look at the challenges and requirements of our customer and what they had, what they came to us with, and how some of the capabilities helped them solve the challenges that they needed in order to improve their process. So we'll do the structure today will be looking at the use case, what the customer needed, but then kind of a quick review of some of the core capabilities, take a look at how SmartDocs satisfied and benefited our eventual customer, how they implemented, and what some of the results were that they were able to realize. So along the way, please do feel free to post questions in the questions field. I'll be paying attention to that, and you're welcome to ask questions. This is very informal, not nearly as formal a presentation as the previous one, so please feel free to ask questions along the way, and I'll do my best to notice them and answer them as I can. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So as I said, this is an actual customer, and so I had documented the process because I thought it was a very, they face common challenges, and regardless of whether or not your team is this large, that doesn't really matter. You have the same level of need, and the same level of being able to decide, okay, this is our current state, this is where we want to be, how do we get there? So they had really common challenges. So none of these are going to seem very unusual to you, and very likely if you're here listening to me today, you have a lot of these same challenges. So they needed to improve response time and win rate, and they saw that's a goal more than a challenge, I suppose. But when you think of it in the context of, they felt that the process that they were using was impeding that. So they wanted to fix the problem, which isn't just put out more responses and win more. Those aren't really tangible things that you can fix. So you want to fix the things that are impacting the response time and win rate. So that's really process and people. So they needed they had 100 plus proposal writers, and that fluctuated a lot. Some were in-house, some were remote. They had no centralization of information. So the way that they were doing any sort of reuse was rather unreliable. And again, I'm sure you're familiar with that. You're copying and pasting from old documents. You're doing a save as and deleting what you don't need and trying to do find and replace and change stuff. So there's a lot of recognition that they should be reusing things and that there is content there that they should be reusing, but there's no way to they had no way of centralizing it, and no way of knowing what everyone on the team was using, because also there was no collaboration. So there's no visibility into where are you getting that content, and how did you build that proposal, where did that come from, how old is the content that you used, when's the last time that was used by everybody, or are you only using what you have used in the past, you specifically, that sort of stuff. So the methods were unreliable. There were way too many careless errors. That comes from simple things, leaving the wrong client name in a document because you have copied and pasted something and it had a previous client's name in there, and there's no easy way to make sure that that does not happen. So too many careless errors, also including just inaccuracies, things that have been updated about pricing or product descriptions or whatever, or policies, guarantees, warranties, or anything like that, scope, that get left in because you're using previous proposal content, but it's not relevant anymore. And then just the simple, each proposal is very expensive to create. There was so much time required and so many people. So there were many hours, there was too much time correcting errors. There was a great deal of review needed because of the uncertainty of the content. So just to give you an average, and I'll show you this at the end when we were looking at a comparison of current state versus implementation state. But the time required to complete the average 50-page proposal was about 40 hours, which if you break down the cost of doing that from the perspective of who's doing it and how much time does it take, it would cost up to $5,000 just to do one proposal. And they do hundreds every year. So this is not necessarily, I mean, that's out of context. You don't know what the proposals are for and the value in it, but there's probably a lot of efficiency that can be gained, right? $5,000 for one proposal, to lose that over and over is pretty expensive. So those unreliable methods, those copy and paste and find and replace methods, damage the results and influenced proposals submissions, and therefore lost some proposals specifically. So what were their requirements? So now you're out of challenges, it's easy to identify requirements, plus they had some others that they know that they were aware of. So they needed centralized content. They needed all proposal writers to have access to the same content, the same templates, regardless of where they are working. And they needed those practical templates. They needed templates that people would actually use, that had consistent branding, yes, which is what most people's templates, when they start out, that's all that they really have is branding, maybe some a suggested format and that sort of thing, but they don't have suggested content. They don't lead people to content that's available. They don't have document automation capabilities built in. So they needed practical templates that people would want to use because they were easy to use, because they got good results. They needed to have someone who acted as a content manager and who could really have visibility and control. So visibility and control over the content itself, versioning, usage, permissions, etc., and also just being able to validate that people are using the content that they're supposed to be using. And they needed consistent use, obviously. So the content manager would also be able to ensure that branding and content was being used consistently. The solution had to be very scalable to suit a large team. The team fluctuated often, so it needed to be that whoever was managing the people, and there were multiple people at that level, whoever was managing people, managing the process, managing the content, would be able to do that easily and would be able to bring new people into the fold easily. So it had to be easy to learn and use. And it also needed to support many different products. So given the size of the sales team, the client had requirements that mandated also that review and approval process needed to include SMEs, product managers, and other content contributors. So being able to pull them in was really important, making that easy. So they needed to be able to include those reviewers and SMEs and whatnot. But they also wanted to, as we saw in the challenges, they wanted to reduce the time it took to do those review processes. That was it was really a bottleneck in most cases. And SMEs ended up acting more like proofreaders as opposed to just providing subject matter expertise when necessary. They did want automation, so they knew that they wanted some sort of automation, and we'll talk about that when we get there, but productivity was too slow, and they wanted automation. Now, the caution, of course, and I said this in my previous presentation as well, is you have to know what it's going to take to get that set up and what the end user experience will be. So, but this is something that they absolutely wanted. They needed to have a very scalable solution and have permission control so that some people could have different levels of access. As I said, easy to learn and use, and also no downtime. So very little difficulty getting people in and not have to worry about support and that sort of stuff. they needed to integrate with Word and SharePoint. So this was a customer that wanted to maintain current use of Microsoft Word as their for their templates, for their content, the way that they would deliver. This was also important because they weren't always creating the proposals that they produced were from their own templates, but they often had other types of requests that they needed to complete. So for example, if the customer provides a document to them, they need to be able to pull in content, insert responses and things like that, and they needed it to integrate with even an externally provided document. So they needed that to happen, and they already used SharePoint and wanted that to be part of the solution. So that was important for them as well. And that's, any company who wants to make sure that you're optimizing the tools you already have and you already pay for and the things that people are already familiar with. That's going to make implementation just go more smoothly. That's just a given. And also that leads right into being able to configure and maintain in-house. So minimal IT resource requirements, not needing to have external support on that regard, not having to hire somebody who's an IT resource just to maintain the solution. That should not have to happen. That's not usually a successful situation, and it's very expensive long term. And it kind of slows down the initial implementation as well. So they want to have be able to, because of being able to support the tools they already use, that IT requirement will be much less. So that was really important to them, of course. So out of their challenges and requirements, they came up with, here are the prioritization of the capabilities. So we figured out which capabilities do they need most, and how do each of the necessary capabilities perform in the solutions they were considering. So a lot of the questions that I provided in that document, the handout that many of you requested, questions for how to come up with what your strategy is and figure out what your current state is, that really came out of this experience that we had with this customer, where we said, okay, here are all the questions you need to ask yourself, and then you'll know what you need, how to prioritize. So that's where those came from. So let's take a look at the capabilities in the context of their challenges and requirements that we just looked at, and see how they satisfy those and how they work in the SmartDocs environment. So as we saw, as I said in our previous discussions, we have a variety of capabilities, and most solutions have some of these core items, but everything handles them differently. So the important part is to understand that if this is a priority for you, and you go to a potential software provider and you say, okay, these are the things that we need, you then are going to ask them, how does your tool do this? And that is how that has to fit in with your environment, with your technology, with your training ability, with your the makeup of your team. So as we look at these things, although SmartDocs has all these capabilities, other things do too. It's just a matter of how does it fit in with your environment and with your needs, and ease of use is always, in my opinion, key, because you want people to actually use it and you want buy-in on the solution, right? Okay, so just a quick review of what this even means, and then we'll take a look at it in context. So capabilities of centralized component reuse. This is fundamentally this is content, it's proposal content management. You need to be able to reuse your content in chunks. It's either text, formatted content, graphics, tables, whatever it is that you need to be able to find and insert easily wherever you need it, okay? That's this capability. So of course they needed that. This is where copy and paste is replaced by something that's traceable, easily accessible, and reliable, okay? So if we take a look now, this obviously satisfies several fundamental requirements once put into place. So I'm going to pull a document over that we're going to look at. And we're going to use this as our sample document today. This is just a demo doc that I use in a lot of demonstrations that I do. It's just a fictitious company named Intech Corporation, and this is a templated proposal response that we're going to use for our demonstration. Okay, so just let me give you a quick tour of SmartDocs, and then you'll know what's going on here. So when you install SmartDocs, it installs right inside of Microsoft Office. So you can see I've opened up a Word document. This document was opened off of an existing template. So a template being a .docx file. This is a .docx file. And when you have a template that's working this way, the beauty of that is that everything in the template comes right along into the document. So every tool that I have included, every bit of content, every structural element, heading, formatting, branding, whatever, all comes along and you have an identical document, and now it's fresh and new, and you just now are adding what you need to it to make it a specific record, a specific proposal. So here we have our document, and you can see there's all sorts of stuff in here and also things waiting for information that's specific to our document. We have a little talk and some content and all sorts of stuff going on. Okay, I'm just scrolling down to this section here. So we have SmartDocs open, or SmartDocs available, all the tools in the ribbon here. I'm also going to open this task pane. So the task pane is simply kind of a hands-on accessible area with some basic tools, but also property information. I'm just going to expand this out a little bit. Okay, now in SmartDocs, the three core elements that you'll see me use today are reusable variables, which are these placeholders you see scattered around, reusable snippets, and that's our reusable chunks of content, and conditional tags. So we'll go over a lot of this stuff, but we're going to really focus a lot on snippets because that's where the that overall content reuse it comes into play in being able to really to really find what you need and make it very easy for people to build whatever document that they're building. Okay, so centralized component reuse is the capability we're talking about first. So let's talk about just being able to search for and find what you need and insert it into a document. So if we imagine, as I said, that we've opened this new document, we're creating a new proposal, and now we're going to plug in content that's relevant to our customers' information and the things that they need to know. So Intech Corporation, by the way, our fictitious company here, makes a variety of products, hardware products like a tablet and a wireless card and all sorts of stuff. So we're going to just start populating this document with information. So let's say we were looking for something to stick in our company profile section here, and I'm going to start with, there are many ways in SmartDocs to find and insert your content, so I'm just going to do some of the basics today. I'm going to type in a keyword into our task panel. I'm going to type in company. So SmartDocs right now is looking into my repository of content, which is in a central location located on SharePoint. And I'll show you SharePoint in context in a minute. So what happened here is I did a keyword search. SmartDocs looked through all of my libraries of content and brought up some search results. Now, couple of things to notice. In this particular case, I'm connected to several different repositories. Repositories are simply, if you speak SharePoint language a little bit, are simply different sites within SharePoint, or the subsites that you set up. And it's very easy. It's just a way to organize lists and libraries. That's all it means. And so in this case, I have 4 different libraries of snippet content, and I have some search results that have come out of 2 of them, my sales proposals repository and my corporate. So within them, they're organized, they're structured by from which repository they're coming. I have some other statistics that I can look at here. This defaulted by sorting to most inserted. So what that means is if you look at this number on the side here, every number represents the number of times that specific snippet of content has been inserted into a document by anyone on my team. So I can sort by that and see the most frequently used. I can, of course, sort by name. So now within each repository, now it's alphabetical. Now, let's go through these, and we're going to talk about all the specifics about how these snippets get structured in a minute. But right now, we did a quick search. We look through here. We see that we have some company profiles here, and we want to grab one of these that are relevant to our client's industry. So we have a few options that our company must have created so that we can satisfy different needs. So I can simply select from this list, and I can drag it, or I can click on insert and pull it right into my document where my cursor is, or I can literally just drag it right in. Now what's really helpful about SmartDocs and how it functions is that you can easily find what you need and just insert it into a document. Now, even if this was a a client provided document, I can do this the same way. As soon as I open any Word document, SmartDocs is there. And so for this team, that was really important. They needed to be able to search for and insert content whenever that was necessary in whatever document they needed it. And that was why that they ended up choosing, one of the reasons they ended up choosing SmartDocs, because it was so easy to do that. Now, my cursor is inside of this snippet, so you can see it has some visual characteristics. If I move my cursor out, it doesn't have those anymore. But over here in the task pane, there's some property information too. It tells us where the snippet came from, that it's the latest version, of course, and this one happens to be a version 6.0. Now, SmartDocs always will insert the most current version. And so as a content manager, if you do need to make updates, you're updating it, you're approving it, that is a controlled thing, and you can now say that no matter what, no matter who finds the snippet is going to get the most current version. And that is key, because when you're doing copying and pasting from old documents, you have absolutely no idea if that content is still relevant. There is no traceability. There's no version control. There's nothing like that. And there are other tools out there that have the capability of reusing chunks of content, but they don't have that centralization that is controlling versioning, so that people know what's the most current version, why is it different than previous versions, and you can do all those sorts of things. You can compare and you can see what is going on. Okay, so I'm going to switch back over to our slide for a minute. So the next thing on this topic here is metadata and taxonomy. This is the ability to classify your content components so that it can be found. It allows you to not only find what you need by doing different types of searching, but it also allows you to have a structure to your content in general. It provides a logical classification, like a folder structure, for your component library. In our environment, it literally is a folder structure. In others, it just kind of represents that organization. So metadata is really important, because you want to be able to have a tool that you can customize that metadata so that it's relevant to you, so that people will be able to find what they need. And you want it to be useful in the sense that you want it to be able to you want to be able to create filters what is going to allow for automation later on, and other types of ease of use capabilities. So let's take a look at what metadata means in our context. So you'll notice that when I did this search for the word company, it actually, in this particular case, it happens to be in all of the names of the snippets that came up in our search. But what SmartDocs was looking for was the word company as associated categorically to all of this content. And so what that allows you to do is have different types of categorical information assigned to your snippet content. So let's take a look at what that means. Like, for example, if I change this to, let me just search by profile and see if we get different types of search results. So here we get, there are company profile comes up, but we also have these other staff profiles, because the word profile is associated with those snippets in its metadata. So you can see it doesn't have to be the name of the snippet. It's part of categorical information that gets assigned to a snippet when it's created. So let's take a look at that a little closer. We're going to create a snippet out of this content. So this is just text. It's nothing. It's not a snippet yet. It's just content in the document template. So if I create a new snippet, we can see we have all this information that we're going to provide to SmartDocs so it can create the snippet for us and make it very easy to find and use and all that sort of stuff. The first thing we do is decide where we want to store it. So again, this is back in our SharePoint environment, which I haven't shown you yet, but it's for the end user. The end user doesn't really know or care SharePoint's doing anything back there. I will show it to you today so you can get a feel for the technology integration. But for me, the end user, if I'm writing a proposal, I don't care that SharePoint's doing anything. That doesn't interfere with me, and I don't have to even log into it for any reason. So the first thing you do is decide where you want to store it. So if I choose, you can see the corporate repository is selected right now. If I switch it, these are our metadata categories that we customize. We choose whatever we want these to be. These are just labels, and then you have different options. So if I switch to different repositories, you can see this changes. So that's one reason why you might have multiple. Most people start with one. But the only important thing to understand about this is that in our environment, this is 100% customizable. So you decide what these labels are. Are they going to be drop-down lists, pick lists? Is there going to be a dependency on them like we have set up here? Are they going to be yes/no buttons, write-in fields? Whatever you need it to be is what it will be. So let's go ahead and create a company size snippet. We'll just give that a name like that. And I will choose categories for this specific snippet. So I'm going to choose organization and structure. So we'll choose those. Okay, and I don't need any additional keywords right now. Now, some of our customers have done things like they'll have metadata fields that represent question text because they have commonly worded questions, and they'll take out phrases and use those as metadata, things like that. So you have endless options, as many fields as you feel that you need to assign to snippet content. Whatever you need to have happen is fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and just say create. Now, just as a side note, only people with permission to create snippets can. Only people who have the additions that allow that can, and that's totally controlled by you and how you want that to happen. So I happen to be using a professional edition license, and I have permission to create and update content, but not everybody necessarily does. Okay, so it's created, uploaded to the repository. Great, we say okay. Now, this is now a snippet. So what that means is that now anyone can use it. Anyone can search for this and use it. Let me show you. So if I were to do another search, we named this company size overview. Let's change our search type to browse. So now we can see these are those same 4 repositories. And what we see here is our snippet library organized by folders. Those folders are dictated by the metadata that I just showed you. So we chose organization as the category, and we chose structure as the subcategory, and there is our new snippet with 0 uses, obviously, because no one has inserted it yet. But what's really important to understand is as soon as this is created, anyone can use it who has access to it and permission. That is very immediate. Other tools do not allow that the way that SmartDocs does. And why this was so important, remember that no downtime requirement, they were working on current projects and building their libraries right along the way. So they needed to be able to, as soon as something's created, if someone goes and looks for it, it's there and they can go ahead and use it. And that was a critical element for them. Now I'm just going to slide over this SharePoint view so you can see, and I happen to be in my demonstration mode. I use this older version of SharePoint, just what I have it set up in. So if you may have Office 365 or whatever, and that's totally fine. This happens to be 2010. But you can see here are those same 4 repositories. So this is just how it looks behind the scenes. And again, end users don't care about any of this stuff. But if I go into my sales proposals repository, you can see we have lists and library here. I go into my reusable snippet library, and look, this is the same set of folders that we just saw. In fact, I can show you side by side right here. So if I go into this organization folder, go into structure, there's our brand new snippet right there. Okay, so that's how it's stored, and it's stored as a Word document. SmartDocs doesn't do anything proprietary. It keeps its Word content as Word content. If you load in a whole bunch of screenshots or images that are created in other that happen to be JPEGs or whatever they are, you can load those in as snippets and they remain in their native format. So SmartDocs is doing anything to your content that makes it difficult to use in other contexts or makes it difficult to migrate out of if you have to do that eventually, right? So it's very easy and it's very immediate. So you can I just wanted to show you what it looks like in the actual centralized structure. So that's what that is. So the metadata is here. That's what dictates the structure, makes it more searchable. And of course, there's a ton of other metadata that SmartDocs applies to snippets once you make something, and all of that is searchable as well. Okay, let's move that over. All right, so because there's no proprietary format, it supports your legacy content and document types. Like what you're using now, you're just creating snippets out of and moving along. And that, again, really important to this particular customer, and being able to use your content in other people's documents. So moving into IT requirements. So they wanted minimal IT requirements. They wanted to make sure that they didn't have to have a dedicated resource who's managing the tool itself. And it's amazing to me how many times I've been to different conferences, APMP in particular, where people will come up to us and say, you know, we've had X product for 3 years now and we're still not using it efficiently. It's basically a glorified copy and paste or library. Because they're too challenging. They're too difficult from an IT perspective to get off the ground. And so the solution really needs to be easy to implement, in my opinion. That's really important because otherwise you're just spending money and then you don't get anywhere and nobody gets any value. Because our tool is tied to SharePoint, which was known already to the team, it was familiar to them, it's easy to configure. I mean, there's nothing to install. You don't need any external consulting. Our support team can certainly help, but you don't need anything more than that. The training environment that we offer walks through step by step what to do. And that's really all you should need. If you find that you're exploring tools and there's a significant amount of consulting that they include on your quotes, make sure you understand what that's for and is it one time, or are you now going to have to train someone to be able to handle that or hire them over and over again? Like, just make sure you know. And maybe that's okay for your company and that's fine. In this case, they needed to be able to handle it themselves. So that's really important. So we saw how easy it is to work with some things. Let me just show you that you can really control access to your content in a variety of ways. So one thing I mentioned, I can create a new snippet and save it to the repository. But if I had a different edition, so SmartDocs specifically comes in Professional and Express edition. If I'm an end user and I'm a proposal writer, but I'm not going to create new content and save it for everyone to use, I'm not going to update snippets and save them to the repository, I don't have permission to do that, I'm just a content consumer, I would only need Express Edition. It's less money, it's fewer tools. My toolbar is much smaller than this. I don't need all of these things, so it's very specific to the user. Plus, you can control all those permissions on the repository level. So within SharePoint, you have control over being able to say these people may have a professional license, however, they can create a new snippet and save it to the repository. However, until it's approved by someone designated as an actual approver, then they can't, it's not available for everyone else to use. So SmartDocs does have that capability. So you have to know, do you need those security and permission control? What do you need? It's as easy as adding users to groups, to the group of who has access to your repository, and then designating who is able to do what with it. And in our environment, that's very easy because of the way that we've integrated with SharePoint specifically. So you have scalability of additions, but you have further control over permission and access within the actual repository environment. Okay. Content usage statistics. So there's a variety here of levels of content usage. So sometimes people want to be able to have visibility about content usage so that the end users can know, okay, here's the content that's being used most frequently. Therefore, that's probably what I want. Being able to obviously see which versions are where, that sort of stuff. But you also may want actual usage tracking. If usage tracking isn't just that content is being used, it is literally in which documents is that content being used, which version is in that document. And that's more for if you are over time needing to maybe go back and update documents when content gets updated. That's a requirement for you. It may be if you're doing proposal that then gets carried into statement of work and then goes into other types of project milestones, reports, and things like that. Maybe that's important for you to track the content that's kind of traveling along through those documents. Has it been updated for some reason, and is that relevant to my document? That might be something that you need. So let's kind of take a look at this. So I had mentioned, I'm going to switch back over to the search pane here. This is, these are the usage statistics. So here I can see how many times has this snippet been been inserted by someone on my team. Anybody on my team insertion. That's a raw count of this has been used this many times. Now where this could be really helpful from a content management perspective, if I sort by most inserted here, let's say every once in a while I do an audit of our content and I say, okay, there are all these snippets that have zeros. No one is using these. So what's the problem? Are they irrelevant? Is the content outdated? Are they not finding them? Maybe they're not categorized properly, so they're not showing up in the right searches that you think people are searching by. So now it gives you the opportunity to act on that and decide, okay, let me review these snippets and see what's going on here. Maybe I need to modify what metadata is applied to them. Maybe the content is just outdated. Maybe it's completely irrelevant now and no one's using this anymore. It's an old product or it's an old service that we don't offer, whatever. So it gives you some visibility and you can make some decisions about it. You also can, in our environment, you can filter your results by different types of timestamps that are associated with your snippet content. So maybe you want to be able to see what's been created in the past month, new snippets that people have created, and you want to take a look at what's going on. So you can do that as well. So things like that. Usage tracking is up here in the ribbon, and usage tracking allows you to manage, as I was saying earlier, where snippets are actually being used. So if you want to, you can turn usage tracking on or off in a document at any time, and it will track the snippets that are being used in that specific document. So that is a really important, if that's important to you, then you have full access to that. And you can do it on the document level, on the snippet level, or on an entire repository level and say, yep, all these snippets that are in these documents, some of these documents no longer need to be tracked, or some documents actually do need to be updated because there's new content available, whatever. You have total visibility of information. Now, anytime that you're working with a document over time, you can also go ahead and look at your reusable snippets list. So this is everything that is in our document. We just have a few snippets in here right now, but you can see you will have statistics associated with any of your snippet content. This is easy for us today because we don't have a lot going on, but we have 4 snippets in the document. All of them are using the latest version. So right now we're seeing that everything is up to date. If a snippet had been updated since we've had this document open, we'd actually see a red X symbol here telling us there's a new version available. Then we can decide what to do about that. We can update it, pull it in, we can view it, we can compare, we can do all sorts of stuff. So right now everything is good to go, and that's all we need to know at this point. But we would have all sorts of statistics down here as they revealed themselves. If there were new snippets available, that would be here. If there were snippets that we made changes to in the document but haven't saved yet, that would be there. So a lot of information available to you in that regard. So it's really helpful. Now, in that same note, I'm going to close this for a moment. Notifications. That kind of piggybacks on what I was just talking about. So you get status, so SmartDocs will tell you the status of what is in your document currently. You can also have an automatic notification, a more proactive process, where if there is content needing that gets updated and you want certain people to know right away that it has been updated, you can set up notifications. So for some, this is really important, that if something is updated, they want people to not just happen to be, open a document and they're working on something and then they get notified, but rather very proactively, like this snippet just got updated, it has new pricing information, everyone needs to update this right away. Well, you don't have to send out an email. You can set up certain notifications so that when that happens, SmartDocs and SharePoint combined are already notifying whoever needs to know. You can also do this for approving. So if your team is allowed to update content and save it to the repository, but it still needs to be approved before it's available for anyone else to use, you can set up notifications so that as an approver, you get a notification saying these snippets are awaiting your approval, and then you can take action. So it's all about taking action and knowing the status of things. So you use simply an alert me capability right in SharePoint. So in our environment, that's very easy. From a end user perspective, if you have a cursor in a snippet, you'll always get a notification. You can see what's current and what's not. I already showed you the reusable snippet window, how to see a list of that and know that that is the snippets in your document are up to date. You can also use a content map. I'm going to close this for a moment. The content map, I think, is really helpful in a lot of ways. The content map represents your entire document, organized just like a Word navigation pane with all your headings and things. But you can expand it out to all of your to all of your SmartDocs elements. So let's just, you can see here are the things that you can choose to expand to. We haven't talked about all of those yet. We'll just say expand to all. So what's showing us here is the status of each of our individual snippets individually here. And again, if one of them was out of date, we would see a red X icon. So I can, if I wanted to, I could click on any of these and navigate myself right to them if I want to check them out, if I wanted to see what was going on. What else this is really helpful for, this content map, is it shows us which sections don't have any content yet, right? So we can see where snippets are. Well, there are no snippets here, there are no snippets here. Now you can decide, is this something that I need to still do? Am I assigning this section to somebody else? That sort of stuff. So now you can decide what, get a good bird's eye view, I should say, of the percentage completion of the document at this point. So this is all, it's all status information. So some of it is notification in a proactive way, alerts in that sense, and others are, here's SmartDocs in our case, tells you what's going on in your document at all times. It doesn't force you to do anything, but it tells you all the information and gives you the options that you have available at that time. Okay, next coming is automated document assembly. So let's take a look at this in a few different ways. So this is the ability to auto-assemble new documents out of this content library that you're building. So we're going to take a look at this in a semi-automatic way and an automatic way. So for most teams, as I said, I've heard so many times that they will purchase a tool based on the automation capabilities, and they just can't seem to get it off the ground. That's where that IT requirement to implement, you need to be really clear about what those requirements are. In our environment, you are literally building a little piece of software right inside of your templates. It's user-friendly, it's not difficult, but it does require some effort. You need to know what it is that you're trying to build and how you want it to be and how you want it to work. So we're going to take a look at all that stuff. So this is really the ability to use all of your centralized content, including variables and conditional tags, which we're going to talk about right now, in a very automated, easy-to-use way. So let's start with this semi-automatic sort of approach. And this goes back to making your templates more practical, being able to really make it easy for people to find what they need. So see this little set of binoculars here in our content map. Those represent what we call smart finders. So I'm going to click on one of these and it'll navigate us right to it. So this smart finder, if we again, we've created this new document from an existing template, and within the template, this Smart Finder was embedded. This is a direct link to a pre-filtered list of snippets. So we've done some searching, we did some browsing, we inserted some snippets, that sort of stuff. Well, let's say we don't even want people to search. We just want them to be presented with a list of snippets that are specifically relevant to this section. So I want to even control which content that they are going to look for. So if I do what it's telling me and double click on this, SmartDocs is presenting me with a list of snippets that are relevant for this section. So I don't even have to go look for anything. We can see all sorts of information here. If I wanted to, I could select one, I can view it first, I can select them however I want. If I select them in a certain order, and I resort, SmartDocs will show me the order that I just selected them in so I can see how they'll be inserted, and then I can move them around. I can do whatever I need to do, select as many as I'm allowed to select. You can always see statistics down here about what you're looking at, and you can see version numbers, whatever you need to have available to you. So then if I say, okay, I need those three, let's go ahead and insert them, SmartDocs will now insert them in the order that I chose them. So it is very easy to complete this entire section. I don't even need to search for anything, and there are all three snippets in a row, formatted, looking exactly the way that they're supposed to look. So that's one of the ways. Here's another one. This is one of the ways that we allow you to really make this a very easy to use capability for your end users. And by the way, all of this is editable. So I could have this tab could read staff resumes, and then I could say choose 3 to include or whatever. I mean, you can have it however you want. You have tons of options around how you set things up. And again, I can just choose whatever I want out of here, choose those 2 and insert them. So it's so easy. Now I've completed 2 sections of my document. I've done no searching. I've just chosen what I need, and I can now move on. Okay, and you can see our content map here. If I refresh that, we'll see these new snippets that we just pulled in, and that those smart finders have been used. So now we know. Okay, so it's really it just makes it very easy for you to do that. So this is, like I said, this isn't the total automation, but this is leading you toward it. And having all these building blocks is really important as you get started. Now, what we haven't talked about too much are variables and conditional tags. So variables, throughout my document, I have variables that represent, some of it represent our Intex corporation information, content that you always want to be the same no matter who uses it. Just opening the task pane back up. So variables, I'm sure you're familiar with these. You've probably used field codes or different types of placeholders and stuff like that. But what's really great about the way that SmartDocs handles these is that for things that you need locked down, you can have locked down values. So those are stored as such in your repository. So anyone who uses our company name, our company's phone number, whatever, that's already stored and it's already has a value. If that gets updated in the repository for some reason, you will again see that there's a red X and I resynchronize and pull in the new information. You don't have to send out emails saying, don't forget, we changed the way that we're presenting this information, or we're changing our company name to this, or we just were acquired, or whatever. That has happened many times where customers of ours have used their own company information as variables, so that and it's happened that they've been acquired, and can change, literally go into their repository, change their company name in one place, and it propagates to every document that is currently being used in. I mean, imagine having to do that manually, and I've seen it happen, and it's a nightmare. So you don't have to do that. In 10 seconds, you've just updated everything. The other types of variables, of course, will vary depending on the document that you're creating. So you have your client-specific information, who's presenting this proposal, all sorts of stuff, proposal name, number, etc. So those are all variables, and you can very easily edit your variables all at one time that are editable, so nothing that's locked, but everything else. So you can go through and boom, 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 list them out, fill in that information, and everywhere that they appear in the document will be updated. And we saw a bunch of those in the beginning. Here's one, proposal client name. So they're scattered throughout my entire document on the cover page, everything else. So it's very easy to update those in a variety of ways. We also have conditional text. Conditional text allows you to identify content that sometimes needs to display and sometimes does not. So we haven't told SmartDocs yet which of these hardware options to include in our proposal. So right now they're all showing. But if I wanted to, I could show and hide whichever I want. And it's very easy to do that manually. Let's say we just want this one for right now. And so now all of those will be hidden. And this is the only one that's included in our document, and we can see information that's associated with it here. This is conditional text that represents more than one conditional tag is applied to the same piece of content. And that's what this color means, but you can see media player is chosen, and there's media player there. So it's really easy to use. But let's imagine we have a whole team of proposal writers like this company had, and they needed people to be able to use this really easily. They didn't even want people to care what a variable is, care what conditional text is, care what a snippet is. That was not necessary information, right? They wanted them to be able to open a new document from a template, answer the questions that they have information about, and get that document that they need at the end. Even if they have to still do some customization, fine. But they wanted them to just know what they're looking for, not have to understand the vocabulary. So I'm going to open up a document that is almost identical to what we're looking at here. But this one has our document automation built into the template, and this is called the Smart Builder. So here's our Smart Builder opened up over where our task pane was. See, this is basically the same template. But this one has a Smart Builder, and what happened is I double-clicked on the name of the template, and boom, I get a brand new document. And in this case, our Smart Builder launched automatically. What does this mean? This means that as the end user, all I need to do, I don't need to do any of the updating or inserting that I was doing manually for you before. Now I can just start filling things in. So I'm just going to start kind of manually putting some stuff in here. And you can probably intuit that a lot of this content that I'm providing, well, two things about it. One, they're going to populate a lot of these variables that you see scattered throughout the document. But also, if you wanted to take this to the next level, you would be able to pull some of this information in automatically from another source. So if you had a CRM you wanted to integrate with, you can do that. If you have a dynamically updating Excel spreadsheet that you like to export and pull information from that, you can do that. There are a bunch of options, but even so, it's only taking me a couple minutes. It's going to take me very little time to fill this information in, and I know what it is, so it's easy. The only thing I really want you to take away from this is that every screen you see here, your Smart Builder would have however many screens you need, whatever content you need, instructions, different fields. I mean, every single thing, nothing about your Smart Builder would look like mine other than the basic structural elements. But you can have as many of these boxes and labels and whatever you want. So there's nothing here that is necessarily what you might want. Here I'm choosing from a drop-down list what our company's industry is. I'll just choose government. Okay, so I've got my company's information, the company client information, who's getting this, etc. Continue. Now, what hardware to include? Remember, that's where our conditional text comes in, but is the end user proposal writer right now? I don't care what conditional text is. That's not important to me. So I'm going to choose whatever I need out of here. I'll just choose a few of these and continue. What references do I want to include? Again, I don't care that these are snippets. The fact that it is a snippet is not important. What is important is I can actually select one and say, oh, what is this one? Do I want to read it first so I can view it? Same thing as when we looked at the Smart Finder. I can now select it in whatever order I want and sort them, and SmartDocs will now insert those the way that I want them. But right now I'm just looking at them and choosing what I want to include. We'll choose some of these as well, whatever we need, staff profiles, and now execute. Okay, so I did 5 different screens. I answered some questions, made some selections, and now SmartDocs is looking at all the responses I provided and associating the relevant actions to them. So I could have had one question, and I answered that one question, and SmartDocs does 50 things behind the scenes, right? Doesn't matter. You can set these up however you need. But the important part to take away is that it's customized by you, and you will be able to build this yourself, and you just saw how easy it is now for me to have built this proposal. Now if I want to, I can see all sorts of statistics here, how many snippets were inserted, all of those that I chose, that variables were updated, you can see those here, that tags are now showing, etc. Now this document's not locked. I can still customize if I need to, if I have to do whatever I need to do. So we can see here all these variable values have been provided. If I need to change something, I can change it. That's fine. All these additional variable values all created. Here's the snippet. I chose that my client my client industry was government. So SmartDocs inserted the company profile associated with government. I didn't even have to select that. I just said what the industry was. That was the only question I was asked. Here are, I had a feeling that was going to happen. Our hidden text was turned on. There we go. Here we have the 3 products that I selected from the list of hardware being presented to me, and anywhere that conditional tag appears in my document is now set to show, and the others are now set to hide. And when I publish this, all of this highlighting is taken away, and it looks perfectly clean and exactly like you would expect it to. Moving down, here are our snippets that we had selected, and etc. So it's done. I could publish it and send it on its way. Or if there's still things that have to be added later, I can do that now. If it has to go to review, we'll talk about that in one second. But basically, what's just really important to take away is that if you do need automation and you do have this need, make sure that it's going to be possible, and make sure that it's going to be the end user experience that you want. And again, it doesn't, some of these tools that you'll see, once you insert content, you can't change it, you can't add to it. You have to be able to have a complete taxonomy predefined, build the document, and that's it. You can't further customize or whatever. In SmartDocs, that's not the case. You also can have multiple smart builders in any one template. So I could have broken this up into smaller pieces. Maybe some people are responsible for that initiating the document part, getting the client information, all that sort of stuff. And then it moves on to the actual proposal presenter who's going to fill in the actual requirements for the project and different things. So you can have many smart builders in here that just get executed as necessary. So you have a lot of options around that. Now, just going back to this for a moment, they also needed support for non-users, meaning they needed people to be able to review the proposal documents but not have to do it in some very unfamiliar environment, or in a PDF which is not editable, or in a different version of the document that then they had to go back and make changes to and stuff like that. And a lot of solutions do not support the non-user. You have to have a license in order to access the document or information or whatever it is that you're building. Or you can only do it by spitting out an output, like I just said. That is all. You have to decide exactly what's going to go into it, generate that final version, and then review it. And then if you don't like it, you go back into the content authoring environment, change whatever you need, etc., respit it out. And so it's not very streamlined. It's just not streamlined. In our environment, and what really assisted with this review process for this team is that if I'm a reviewer and I don't have SmartDocs, so this doesn't exist for me, right? I just have Word, and I open up your proposal, I see literally exactly what you're seeing right now. I can go into this document. It's still just a Word document. Nothing weird about it. I could go into here and I can make changes if I need to. I can track those changes. I can go into a snippet and make changes. And the way that we support that as a company is we have a little training guide for reviewers so that they know, okay, if you put your cursor in here and you see this is what it is. And it doesn't impact your repository. It doesn't impact anything but this document. So then I get it back from the reviewer, and I can say, oh, I can see what they changed, because SmartDocs will tell me which snippets may have changes to them in the document. You can still track changes and save it. That's totally fine. And now I can reconcile that, but I haven't created many versions of this document. They're all floating around and being emailed. Ideally, you're putting it in one location. You're sending the reviewer to get it from there, review it there. But it does support the non-user, and that's really important for some. So this really solved that SME reviewer problem. Also, because the reviewers know that this tool is pulling in only approved content already, they don't have to work so hard. They're only focused on anything that is new or anything that they had to contribute about a new product or service. So they didn't have to review so much, and they were able to not have to worry about proofreading and stuff like that. They just could focus on anything that was new that really did require their actual eyes, right? They didn't need to look at the entire thing every single time because they knew that content was being used reliably. So this really, really helped them. It's still Word, and they were able to do whatever they needed to do. Okay. All right, so let's look at results. The proposal rating, I explained to you that whole scenario before, and here you can see they had this average time to complete. A 50-page proposal was 40 hours. They were losing bids due to inaccurate, outdated information, sloppy formatting, inconsistencies, etc. So all these unreliable methods were costing them money in every way, in loss of bids, and in just how much it took to produce these in the first place. With SmartDocs now, they saw an unbelievably significant improvement, and that's how we realized, what a great opportunity this could be for teams, because just having, even before the automation part, just having that consistency, the ease of use, knowing that people are using what they're supposed to be using, they liked using the templates because they actually provided them value. They had now such an easy way to get at everything. Then add in the document assembly automation, and that just blew that completely out of the water. It was just it took minutes to generate that first proposal that I just showed you, right? So apply that to, even if it's a much longer proposal and you're doing it in pieces, it's a couple of hours now for them to actually get it ready, have it ready for review, get reviewed, get it, and through the process. So it just saves the company thousands of dollars per proposal. So obviously now they can confidently say, yep, we can apply all, or we can respond to all these different requests for proposals, so many more than they used to be able to. The writers know that they're delivering accurate information. They don't have to worry about, am I getting the most up-to-date stuff? That's not even a question. It's just a bulletproof, complete reliability, and they don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So this is real. These are real results. We've seen companies that improve productivity very, very quickly, and then they could just continue to grow that. And it starts early. It starts immediately with the first variable, the first snippet that you create. You've already started to create efficiencies. You start to build that up and apply some automation to it, and there's just it's a wonderful way to let people work. It just allows them so much flexibility. So I hope you got a lot out of that. I hope that helps you to see what some of these capabilities can look like when you're in a real environment. With SmartDocs as the example, obviously, but if that's right for you and you're interested in some more information about that specifically, let me know. We can give you very accurate pricing. Our pricing is a very simple model. Most of it's available on the website as well. If you want a free trial to get your hands on it, let me know that too. You can go to the website and there are forms to request those things, or you can just contact me directly. But I hope that you were able to start connecting the dots between what SmartDocs does and what you might need, or just if you're trying to evaluate other tools, now you have something to compare it to and figure out, is this the way you want to go? And how have you prioritized your needs? Do they fit in with what the tools that you're exploring are offering and what they excel at? So thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to learning more about what it is you're looking for and what brought you here today. Have a great day.